Wisdom, the final frontier to true knowledge. Welcome to Wisdom Trek, where our mission is to create a legacy of wisdom, to seek out discernment and insights, to boldly grow where few have chosen to grow before. Hello, my friend. I am Guthrie Chamberlain, your captain on our journey to increase wisdom and create a living legacy. Thank you for joining us today as we explore wisdom on our second millennium of podcast. This is day 1476 of our trek, and it is Worldview Wednesday. Creating a biblical worldview is essential to have a proper perspective on today's current events. To establish a biblical worldview, you must have a proper understanding of God and His Word. This week on our Worldview Wednesday episodes, we will continue with our study based on a course I recently completed, taught by Dr. Michael S. Heiser. Our study is titled Sons and Daughters of God, the Believer's Identity, Calling, and Destiny. Throughout this multi-week course, we will demonstrate that in the Old Testament, sons of God and holy ones refer to supernatural beings whose Father is God and who work with God to carry out His will, and that this divine family was present before humanity. By fully engaging the biblical text, such as Psalm 82, Psalm 89, and Deuteronomy chapter 32, verses 8 and 9, our study will show that this design family functions as a template for God's human family. God desires of human, as His imagers, to participate in His counsel. This study addresses issues such as polytheism, the nature of little g gods, and the uniqueness of Yahweh. Within this study, we will apply insight to the New Testament text, which shows how the metaphor for being in God's family informs our sense of identity and mission as believers. So today's topics will be None Beside Me and the Only Begotten Son. Segment 18, None Beside Me, Part 3. Today we're looking at incomparability claims of cities. As we continue on the topic of none besides me, there's one last thing I want to say about this so-called denial statements. There are other places in the Hebrew Bible where they are used. That is, the same statements in situations or context that make it very obvious that denial of existence cannot be in the picture. For instance, in Isaiah chapter 47 verses 1, 8, and 10, and Zephaniah chapter 2 verses 13 and 15, in these passages respectively, the city of Babylon in the Isaiah reference and the city of Nineveh in the Zephaniah reference both claim, that is, they both say, "There's none beside me." Now, are we really going to believe that Babylon and Nineveh respectively actually thought or wanted to think, or the writer wanted us to think, that there was no other city than Babylon in existence? There was no other city than Nineveh in existence in the time of Zephaniah? Well, of course not. That would be absurd. There are hundreds and thousands of other cities in existence at the time. The point of the phrase, "there is none beside me," is very clearly a claim of incomparability. Babylon is boasting, "There's nobody as good as me. There is nobody like me. No city measures up." For the Assyrians, that's how they thought about Nineveh. Nineveh is the best. Nineveh is incomparable. So let's summarize this thought about none beside me. We have used the same phrases used in the context where, very obviously, the denial of existence cannot work in any coherent way. That is how we need to think about the denial phrases. When they are used in passages that seem to, on the one hand, deny the existence of other Elohim, but then you have all these other passages, and sometimes even in the same passages saying, no, the Elohim are real, they are dangerous, they need to be dealt with. They are hostile to God. God is greater than them. We can't on the one hand affirm that they don't exist and then have these other ideas, God's incomparability to them, God's greatness, because there is no way that can mean anything. The only way to do that is to say, yes, they are real. The biblical writers thought they were real, and relatively speaking, they were nothing compared to the God of Israel. Now let's move on to segment 19 and think about Jesus as the only begotten Son. As we start to think about this, the remaining question is, what do we do with Jesus? If you remember back a few weeks, we listed the questions that extend from all of these sons of God's language in the Old Testament, and we asked, how do we align what the New Testament says about Jesus to all these Old Testament material. What we meant there was, in particular, New Testament verses like John 3:16, we have Jesus described as the only begotten Son. But now we've got all these Old Testament materials with lots of sons of God in the picture. How do we bring these two things together? Is there a contradiction? What are we to do here? And it boils down to the meaning of a Greek word monogenes. And the key here is to think correctly about monogenes. That's a Greek term, the one that gets translated only begotten in verses like John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, monogenes. So what do we do with that, and why bring it up? Scholars used to think well into the 19th century, even spilling into the 20th century, that monogenes was a combination of two Greek words, monos, meaning only, and geneo, the verb to beget, to have children. So you put these two words together, and you get only begotten. That is typically the way monogenes got translated in the English Bibles. More recent discoveries, though, in the Greek language and really in Greek literature widely that matched and aligned itself very well with biblical material revealed that there was a mistaken notion. Monogenes was not from monos and geneo, it was from monos, which means again only, and gene, which means kind. So monogenes really means one of a kind or unique. It actually clears the matter up pretty well this way. We have to keep in mind that Jesus was the Yahweh incarnate. We can have Jesus being the monogenes Son of God, the unique Son of God, and still have other sons of God, other divine beings in the Old Testament, and they can be in this picture. There is something that made Jesus unique. What was that? Well, he is God incarnate. He is Yahweh. The other sons of God, which we've talked about in length in previous weeks, are not Yahweh. They are lesser. Let's look at an Old Testament situation which also deals with monogenes. And this is Isaac, but he's not the only begotten. So there's really not a contradiction or a problem here. It's really deriving from the English translation that the confusion comes about. Now the real proof of this is in Hebrews chapter 11 verse 17. In that verse we have Isaac, Abraham's son, referred to as monogenes. Now here's the question. Was Isaac Abraham's only son that he gave birth to? That he had fathered biologically? No, he wasn't. In fact, he wasn't even the firstborn. Ishmael was also the son of Abraham. So if you look at monogenes as only begotten, we have a real problem here, because Isaac was not the only son Abraham had. If we look at monogenes as being unique, Isaac was the unique son of Abraham. Why? Because he was the son born of a promise. He was the son born of Sarah, who was barren. So as we summarize this section, it's an excellent illustration of how monogenes really refers to uniqueness. So Jesus is a unique Son of God. Again, the reason he is unique is that he is God. And that furthermore clarifies for us the relationship between this language and the sons of God in the Old Testament. And that will finish our study for this week's Worldview Wednesday. Next week we will begin a new section in our study covering the human family as imagers. But before we get to next week, tomorrow we will enjoy a 3-minute humor nugget that will provide you with a bit of cheer, which will help you to line up and live a rich and satisfying life. So encourage your friends and family to join us and to come along with us tomorrow for another day of Wisdom Trek, Creating a Legacy. If you'd like to listen to any of the past 1,475 daily treks or read the Wisdom Journal, they are all available at wisdom-trek.com. And I encourage you to subscribe to Wisdom Trek on your favorite podcast player so that each day will be downloaded to you automatically. And thank you so much for allowing me to be your guide, your mentor, but most importantly, I am your friend as I serve you through the Wisdom Trek podcast and journal each day. And as we take this trek of life together, let us always live abundantly, love unconditionally, listen intentionally, learn continuously, lend to others generously, lead with integrity, and leave a living legacy each day. I am Guthrie Chamberlain, reminding you to keep moving forward, enjoy your journey, and create a great day every day. See you tomorrow.